One of the uncomfortable truths for a lot of traditional martial artists is the fact that if you know how to fight, you can kind of make any system work. And because of this, there is a lot of backlash from the combat sports community and even the operator, reality-based self-defense community, things like that, against traditional martial arts because they're like, well, you don't know how to fight. You know all these techniques, but you don't know how to fight. And that is often true because schools misplace where their priorities go. On the other side of it, we also have the fact that in the traditional martial arts, during the classical period when these arts were being developed over the last couple hundred years, one of the things that has been somewhat abandoned that people forget about is that while these guys may not have been doing a ton of free sparring, these guys may not have been doing a bunch of sport competition, these guys were fighting all the time. We're legitimately talking street fights, challenge matches, public square matches, things like that were happening a lot more frequently. And especially in the case of Southern Chinese martial arts, you're talking an era where legitimately banditry and piracy was super common. People had to defend themselves quite consistently, quite commonly. So the fact is that these people were getting into fights. They knew how to deal with pressure. What their training was for economy, efficiency, cleaning things up, right? It was getting a little more out of the thing. There was a recent interview that Mark McYoung went on Tim Larkin's show, and McYoung was talking about, during his day, all these guys that went and joined, karate schools and stuff, they were already out there scrapping. They grew up fighting. They grew up scrapping. They knew how to deal with the pressure. They knew how to deal with violence. And, most of them had seen somebody get knocked out. Most of them had experienced bloody noses, and worse, and much worse. And the fact is that when you grow up or you have serious experience with fighting of any sort, you're going to be infinitely better prepared when it comes to learning a martial art. So generally speaking, when people ask me about, what martial art should I start with, or what martial art is the best, which is a terrible question, generally speaking, I have to tell people things like join an MMA gym, go to a kickboxing school, go to a boxing club. If you have the opportunity to go learn wrestling. I mean, wrestling is literally the most dominant base style in the UFC. That should tell you something, right? Because the fact is that people that are equipped to handle the pressure, even if they only have a rudimentary understanding of the basics, they tend to do really, really well. When I got to meet Dan Severn, one of the things he was talking about was when he went into his first UFC match, he said he didn't know anything about striking. He just covered up, slammed the guy into the cage, and used his wrestling to pin the guy down, and then started pummeling him until he gave up. That was the strategy. And because he was a champion wrestler, he knew how to deal with the pressure. And look, if you can take a hard throw, a slamming throw, you can take a punch. And so we look at this over and over and over again, and the guys who fight well can make just about anything work. Guys who understand how to fight can make karate work. They can make kung fu work. They can make, obscure things. Well, Silat's not that obscure, but they can make more obscure things like Silat work better, because they're more acquainted with the fighting. And, I really hate to bring it up, but, Bruce Lee was not wrong when he said that, somebody who had 6 months of boxing could wipe the floor with somebody who, had been traditionally trained for several years. And while it's a very cynical statement, essentially what he was saying, he was coming in at the end of the fighting era, right? Things started really cleaning up, especially in Hong Kong where he came from. Things started cleaning up in the mid-60s. And that was because of political pressure, government pressure to stop the fighting, because fighting is bad politically, diplomatically. So what you're seeing then is that the traditional martial arts got away from the culture of fighting, said, well, we don't like the sports stuff is stupid, and then so they just don't do it. And that's why a lot of times traditional guys can't fight very well. But it's not because the traditional systems are lacking, it's because they don't do the one piece, the one key ingredient that is so important to the overall fight game, which is actually experiencing fighting, whether that's through simulation, i.e. sparring, or that is actually fighting, whether that be out in the real world or in competitive matches. But the point is, hell, go to a jiu-jitsu school and look at the white belts. The white belts that did wrestling before are usually able to handle, belts another 1 or 2 up from them, because they already know how, they have the fundamentals. They know how the pressure works. And yes, jiu-jitsu and wrestling are very different, but the fact is they still do really well because they're already acquainted with kind of some of the baseline fundamentals. They've got a head, they've got kind of a head start on it. And that's a critically important factor. So whether you're in traditional martial arts, whether you're in combat sports, whether you are on the reality-based self-defense or combatives or law enforcement side, whatever side of things you're on, get that base in fighting. And yeah, fighting is by and large illegal unless it is a sanctioned sporting event. So kinda you gotta do the sports stuff these days, and that's fine, right? As long as you don't, as long as you're not going into a scenario where you think that your opponent's going to box with you and he's not, there's nothing wrong with having a foundation in boxing or kickboxing. There's nothing wrong with having a foundation in wrestling. There's nothing even wrong with having a foundation in scrapping and street fighting, but you have to take that and then further refine it through the lens of, proper, classical martial arts training, which is technique and structure and all that, regardless of what system you choose. Even boxing deals with technique and structure, but there's a difference between the guy that just joined the gym and the seasoned pro, right? There's a huge difference between those two guys. And you can say the same thing for any martial art. Now, yes, the truth is people join martial arts classes for a variety of reasons, and not everybody's interested in fighting, and I get that. To which I would say, you know what? Good on you. Most people are not going to go out and get in a fight, but at the other side of it, don't drag the rest of the class down, because at the end of the day, martial arts is about fighting. Martial arts has always been about fighting. And so if you remove the fight from it, you're not really practicing martial arts anymore. So just keep that in mind. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to admit, but the fact is that if you can fight, you can make any system work. If you can't fight, you're probably not going to be able to make any system work. So really what it comes down to is getting those basics, those fundamentals drilled into you. And I don't care if it is just simple boxing, simple wrestling. Go do it. Get those fundamentals down. Because in my opinion, there is nothing more important to kickstarting your journey than actually getting kind of a taste of what it is, what the end goal is, getting a small picture taste of what the big picture is. That's important. So I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, give the dog a bone. You can follow us on our other social media accounts, and if you really like us, you can head over to Amazon and buy a shirt. You can also go over to Gumroad and purchase some of our instructional courses. All of the links will be provided and also on our website. If you happen to be in the Phoenix area, we would love to meet you. Come drop in for a class, even just to chat. And if you're looking for a new home, we would be happy to have you. So until next time, good journey.